I'm Amy Lane. I'm the English teacher you never wanted in your living room, and yet here I am. Today we're here to talk about the literary foil. Literary foil is something that appears in many, many, many books because what it does is it exposes the things the main character needs to complete his journey. That's what a foil is. In literature, it's a character in a story who shows us what the main character is lacking. This concept has been converted into romance a lot. And pretty much every good romance shows two people together who are foils of each other. But before we talk about that, in my next segment, we will talk about this, which is how foils work in general. Now, three of our most famous foils in all of history are the foils found in Hamlet. And those foils are Laertes, Fortinbras, and Horatio. Now, Hamlet is essentially a character who he is crippled by his own inability to make up his mind. He doesn't wish to be a murderer. His father is revealed to have been murdered. He knows who did it, he thinks, and he wants proof before he goes around slitting the throats of kings. This is also a time when the king was secondhand to God, and so there's a lot of internal social programming that goes against killing the guy who offed his old man, even if his old man was a king too. So Hamlet is very conflicted. And there are three other characters in there who show us how Hamlet could have acted, things he could have done that would perhaps have made his story not a tragedy, but a heroic journey instead. The first is Laertes. Laertes is not troubled by conscience. Laertes is told that Hamlet has killed his father, who is Polonius. And yes, Hamlet did kill Polonius accidentally. Hamlet was a nut like that, did lots of shit accidentally. But he killed Laertes accidentally. And Laertes, upon hearing this, said, yes, I am very, very happy to participate in a plan that will kill Hamlet because I want my revenge. And I don't care what happens. I believe Laertes' exact example was, I would slit his throat in a church. Coincidentally, this is something Hamlet refused to do. He refused to slit his uncle's throat while his uncle was confessing, because that way his uncle would go to heaven instead of to hell, because his uncle was recently confessed of having committed a murder. So Hamlet kind of got in his own way overthinking things. Laertes is not troubled by overthinking things. Death is his primary end. So these two characters are contrasted by their methods, by the way they think, by what they would do to achieve their goals. And we see Hamlet, in his dithering, has hurt a lot of people, including his girlfriend, who commits suicide. And we think maybe if Hamlet had a little more of that fiery temper, a little less ethos, perhaps his journey might have ended better. Maybe. We also have Fortinbras. Now, Fortinbras is a character who is mostly off stage. A lot of times Fortinbras is relegated to just a few mentions in the movies, in the cinema, because he is really easy to cut. But the fact is, Hamlet has a little speech about how Fortinbras is his age. Fortinbras goes, hey, these people are camping on my land. The Danes aren't doing a great job as leaders. They seem to have a lot of problems with their family. I'm going to go in. I'm going to take over. I'm going to revamp their government. I belong there, and this is my birthright. So at the end of the play, while Hamlet is gasping out his last breath, he's like, tell Fortinbras, because Fortinbras is going to come in, take over, and I would sort of like people to know that I'm not a mass murderer. I was just very confused. So Hamlet has another role model in Fortinbras. Fortinbras could be the person he's trying to be. Hamlet is trying to be. Hamlet has goal, drive. He wants to rule a country. He thinks he can do a better job than the people in charge. And there are some underlying subtexts that, yes, the people in charge in Denmark are rotten. That is an exact quote. Something rotten in Denmark. So Hamlet could be contrasted with Fortinbras. If he had taken over in a political way, he would karmically, killing his uncle the king would be very, very cool, because his uncle the king wasn't doing such a hot job. Okay, so there's another contrast. The third foil in Hamlet was Horatio. Horatio is Hamlet's best friend. And I always thought they belonged together. That could be just, looking at things with my Yowie goggles. Horatio was known for being measured and reasoned and looking at things without passion, looking at things with a steadfast heart and loyalty, and keeping his priorities in order. And Hamlet, in fact, says at one point, "Give me a man who is not passion's slave." He thinks that if he was less ripped asunder by all of the confusing things going on around him, that he could find his journey. He could figure out what he's supposed to do with this terrible information. These three characters show us what our main character is lacking. He's missing resolve. He's missing reason. He's missing a motive aside from the fact that his uncle killed his father to want to take over the kingship. He's missing ambition. He is missing all these things that Laertes, Fortinbras, and Horatio have, and they are showing him the way. So Hamlet is pretty much one of our most successful show of foils, of where are the, we know this character is troubled. What would he need if this were not to end badly? My next example is one in which the other characters show us what our character needs for it to end well. Because Harry Potter takes lessons from his three foils, which is why his journey at the end is successful. Remember, Harry Potter started out without a lot of direction and what a good person was and what a successful person was. If we look at his home life with the Dursleys, you have got people who are not kind. Their biggest ambition is getting their son into a decent prep school, but they don't have any grand ideas of saving the world. They have no vision. And Harry, of course, longs to get out of there, but he doesn't have any role models for who to be besides the kid in the cupboard. Okay, particularly his own age. When he gets to Hogwarts, he finds Hermione. Okay, Hermione, and I realize that many people were disappointed that Hermione was not his romantic foil, but I personally felt very validated because Hermione was another hero. She was not a love interest, although I love it when love interests are heroes. That's my favorite kind of book. She was not the love interest because she was his foil in a heroic sense. That what she showed us was that he needed to study. Hermione showed us that Harry needed to apply himself. He may have had some talent and he may have had a decent pedigree for being a good wizard, but he needed to read. He needed to figure out what kind of world he was in. And so she provided him with a blueprint for how to acclimatize himself to this new world. He had Ron as his second foil. And what Harry may not have known about warmth and family and kindness and having a loyal and steadfast heart, Ron most assuredly showed him. Ron was not a brain trust. That's fine. I love me a character who's a bit of a meatloaf, but whose emotional intelligence is very, very, very exceeding his intellectual grasp, and that was Ron to a T. He taught Harry how to be steadfast and brave and a good friend. And when Ron struggled with that himself, Harry proved to be his true north. And so Harry learned all sorts of lessons, including how to sit at Christmas dinner from Ron, but also how to not be a dick. Harry's first meeting with Ron Weasley, who had been kind to him in the railroad car, and then Draco Malfoy, who just wanted Harry for his pedigree. That was a hero's choice right there. Which one of these guys do I pick? Do I pick the guy with the confidence and the swagger, who's a bit of a dick? Or do I pick the guy who was sweet to me? And Harry picks Ron. And that is a lesson that he learns repeatedly. And it's a lesson that in the end serves him very well. That when you are good to others, simply because that's the way you should be, then that will come back and help you. And of course, his third foil is Draco. And Draco was a bit of a dick. Draco had some resolve, some political ambition that Harry was lacking. Harry is very much a hero's hero. And Draco does have some very interesting ideas about that's not where you belong. You need to look at the situation and see where you belong before you jump in and do something about it. Of course, Draco was a bad guy with an ambiguous redemption arc at the end. But Harry can learn lots of things, including what not to be. And again, that first scene, Draco comes up, says, "Hey, I've got a magic pedigree too. We should be friends." And Harry's like, "You're kind of a dick." And so Harry learns that he doesn't want to be this guy. Okay. Foils. These 3 foils teach Harry Potter what he needs to complete his hero's journey successfully. Okay. Now, my plan was for these to be very short segments. This one has hit almost 13 minutes, so I think that's long enough. We shall have how foils work in a romantic sense next week. In the meantime, stay cool. Find a fan, a cool drink, a swimming pool if you can find a swimming pool. Do a few laps for me. I miss the swimming pool with the pandemic. And have a very good week.